We have chosen to mark this day not because we're in the mood for celebrations. No. We're marking this day even when the nation is struggling to exit from the excruciating economic recession and anguish being faced by our people. Our intention, therefore, is to simply appraise ourselves, to find out at midterm how far we have kept faith with our constituents and Nigerians in the contract or social charter we entered into at the inception of the 8th House of Representatives via our legislative agenda.
Some call it the Green Chambers, some call it the Lower Chamber, but no matter how you see it, it is the People's Chambers. A representation of 360 elected honorable men and women across the length and breadth of Nigeria, representing the over 250 ethnic nationalities of Nigeria under one roof. With this, I welcome you into the hallowed chambers of the Nigerian Federal House of Representatives under the leadership of the amiable Speaker, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, in the 8th Assembly.
Democracy can never be properly defined without the legislative arm of government. And in fact, the only arm of government that defines democracy is the legislative house. And so it goes to show that without the legislative arm of government, definitely such a system of government cannot be described as being democratic.
I've always believed that the legislature is the most important arm of any constitutional democracy. And that has been proven over and over again. It's the most powerful, it's the most important. It's the one that anchors democracy itself. The main function of a legislature, as you know, is to make laws for good governance. That's the main function. But then there are ancillary functions that are attached and by necessity are part of the workings of the legislature: oversight and representation. Representation is all encompassing. You are the ears, the eyes, and the mouthpiece of the common man. And so their interest must always be can only be brought to the fore by the legislature or the representative.
It also serves in there as a checks and balance in every government, because where power is concentrated in only in an arm of government, if not properly managed, you end up having some level of dictatorship or unnecessary authoritarianism. So it creates that checks and balance.
Without the parliament, you cannot have such laws that will secure that will secure the country, will protect the citizens, protect their fundamental rights, and so on and so forth. So our responsibility is quite key to the development of democracy in a nation.
When you talk about the legislature in democracy, you are talking precisely of the backbone of the democratic system itself. So it's like when you don't have legislature there is no democracy. So I can now rightly answer your question by telling you that legislature means democracy. And without legislature, you don't have a democracy.
The legislature symbolizes democracy. Once there is no legislature, then it is something else. It cannot be said to be a democratic government. And that is why in the House of Representatives, we have to make laws, we have to do representation, and again, we have to do oversight function to ensure that whatever thing we pass, like budget and signed by the president, we must go to the field to ensure that these things are appropriately done.
It has been a symposium of the first, highest and best so far for the 8th House of Representatives under the leadership of Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara. The 8th House opened its matrix by scoring its first feat, a legislative first. The House sectoral debates on the diversification of the economy. This featured ministers concerned with the issues, interacting with the legislators at plenary, briefing the House on the activities of their ministries with respect to diversification of the economy in the face of dwindling economic fortunes and a rather unstable currency. This surely did set the House on its course to making good legislations, reviewing existing laws, and better oversight activities for economic development.
The 8th House of Representatives introduced sectoral debates. The idea is to get ministers to share their vision and how they intend to achieve them, so that Parliament can in turn hold them accountable to goals they themselves have set. The first phase of the debate on diversification of the Nigerian economy has been concluded. The other phases are scheduled in the next session.
But in terms of reformist interventions, there's things that have been done. We've called ministers in to brief the House and to brief the whole world, on their programs. That's the first in the history of Parliament.
We have a roadmap for the House, which we call legislative agenda. And in that agenda, it was propounded that the economy will be key in our considerations. And so even before the issue of recession came, the leadership of the House organized what we call economic, a kind of stakeholders discussion across certain economic policies of the government, whereby most of the ministers, honorable, were invited to the floor of the House to tell us the agenda, and then the Parliament eventually made its own input and submitted documents to this. That was even before the session.
But with this government policy of diversification, with what is happening to the oil sector now, it has now become a common goal for the executive arm of government and the legislature to create windows where other sectors of the economy can also be tapped, and legal enhancement can be created to unbundle such things that in the past were blocked, either for public participation or for government free hand to operate. Because even the government may have its hands tied in some cases, because virtually for every process to thrive, you must have to create laws that will warrant the successful operation of that thing. And for every policy of government also, in most cases you find out that they also need that kind of legal enablement for them to really achieve what they want to achieve.
This legislature came into the realization that they must work hand in hand with the executive. We must eschew partisanship in ensuring that laws, laws that will enable this country get out of its current economic mess are put in place.
As the ship sailed, leadership of the 8th Assembly decided to revolutionize the business of the House by breaking away from the traditional order paper into a digitalized online menu that is served every honorable member in the comfort of his home overnight to peruse, research, and deliver through robust debates on the floor of the House. This has injected a digital revolution in the legislative business and practice.
What I want to say in essence is that the National Assembly we have on ground now, the 8th House of Representatives and the National Assembly by extension, is being one of the most productive in recent history, in the history of Nigeria's legislature. And we also succeeded right from day one in establishing a leadership that is internally created, a leadership that emerged without any external interference. In the history of Nigeria's legislature, you can bear me witness, in most cases, you find out the executive arm of government, even business tycoons outside, other forces within the polity would want to come and influence one thing or the other.
Equipped with a legal background, the Speaker, Right Honorable Dogara, understands the limitations, weakness, and failures of obsolete laws and legislations, and therefore decided on the need to review the status books, bringing it at par with present-day reality. Hence, the House set up a committee of eminent jurists to review obsolete laws and reform the laws, leading to an unprecedented record consideration of 130 bills on the same day for the first reading in legislative history.
As a house, our own policy is to make sure that we improve on the lives of Nigerians. And how do we improve on the lives of Nigerians? By making laws that will improve on how Nigerians live in terms of their welfare and their security. And I'm proud to say that in the last 2 years, we've done that a lot. There were so many bills that we have passed, and so many bills are still in the making that are going to change the lives of Nigeria for better. Nigeria, again, is a major missing gap. Nigerians, again, don't even know, or they have not come to understand how they can engage the legislative arm of government. They think all laws must be written and made by the legislature. No, it is the public itself that must come forward to come and start writing laws and writing bills so that we pass them to laws. And when we are able to bridge this gap, then we get a better democratic system of government.
We have passed more number of bills, more than what any other assembly has ever done. Just yesterday, the Speaker has just received about 71 bills that he has asked some experts to review some statute laws, because we realize that some of these laws that we have are either obsolete, we need to repeal them, or we need to amend them, as the case may be.
In terms of the core mandate of lawmaking, we have remained a bastion of legislative activism. Indeed, members of the 8th House of Representatives are keenly in competition with one another in fashioning out legislative solutions to myriads of problems facing the nation. This is why, in all facets of lawmaking, we can comfortably and conveniently assert that we have broken all records.
Portraying a high level of legislative engagement, the 8th House of Representatives records the highest number of bills considered by any assembly in the pace of 2 years, with over 1,000 bills introduced to the House since its inauguration, the highest considered by the House since the return to democracy. This attests to the high level of legislative engagement in the House and commitment to the Nigerian project.
Another bill that we have passed that is going to help how we do business is to amend the Procurement Act. We've just amended the Procurement Act in a manner that will make it easier for procurement to be properly done and at a faster rate. Because if you go by what we've been operating, the Procurement Act is too restrictive, and it's been constricting how public procurement is being carried out in the last few years.
The amendment to the Immigration Act, which specifically provides that, which gives Nigerians the first dip when it comes to employment. That where Nigerians are suitable and available and ready to do a particular job. And don't forget the qualifications. They are suitable, in other words, they have the capacity, they're willing and able and available to do the job. You cannot give that job to a foreigner. And that, to me, it's a bill, when assented to by the president, will reduce greatly the rate or the number of unemployed in this country. Because it doesn't make any sense that you have today in Nigeria, you have people who work in hospitals, who work in hotels, who work in restaurants, who work on the field, the laborers, who are foreigners. And yet our people are crying out for work. You have bankers, you have oil workers, doing jobs that Nigerians can do. And that doesn't obtain in any country that seeks to protect its citizens. When you talk about security and welfare of citizens being the main purpose of, primary purpose of government, that's what we're talking about.
EIB, yes, it's in the making. And we are trying to sanitize the oil industry. And let me tell you, one of the major problems we have in our economy in the last 50 years, because we've depended so much on oil, whereas in other climes, it is written there in their books that foreign companies always let go of the oil wells after a certain number of years. In some countries, 25 years. In some, it's 30 years. But in Nigeria as of today, since 1958, nobody, no oil major has let go of any oil well since 1958. They still go there until they pump it dry and leave the place. And whereas, if you take the case of Saudi Arabia even took over their oil industry after 25 years of operation. And so these are areas, those are areas we are still attending to in the PIB bill. That's why it does not come to the floor for the proper reading. So those are the areas we have attended to in the last 2 years to see how business is being done and how business is being run. We have attended to the CAC Act, that is Company and Liability Matters Act. We've amended the relevant section and so many other, acts by way of amendment and so many other bills that will help how business is being run in Nigeria.
Another bill has been the Students' Loan Bill, which again I put forward on the floor of the House. And that bill basically seeks to provide student loans to people, because you have a lot of indigent people, very smart young men and women who, other than financial reasons, are very smart and could have done great things, but they're stunted, or their progress has been stunted because of their inability to put material resources together to further their education. And it is incumbent on this government to pass laws and to make the environment conducive for them to be able to pursue their education. Education for me is not a privilege, it's a right, or should be a right. And it's not just for the rich, it's for everybody, poor, rich, and not so rich. And so the Student Loan Bill basically seeks to advance loans to students, interest-free, and also gives them a moratorium of however many years they go through school, and then you can start paying back your principal once you're employed. We passed the National Minimum Wage Act, Amendment Act, which again was my bill, which seeks to simply said, to put it simply, it seeks to make it compulsory, mandatory, to compel the government that every 5 years you must review the work of salary, the wages of salaries, and make sure they're earning a livable wage. Right now, as the law is, it just says 18,000. There's no provision that says that you must review periodically, which makes it optional for the government, and which makes it leaves the review of salaries and wages to the whims and caprices of government. So, for instance, the 18,000 can remain there for the next 20 years without a law. It now becomes whether the government wants to be benevolent enough to review wages. It shouldn't be so. Again, livable or living wage is a right and not a privilege.
For a country seeking to break the yoke of economic and political underdevelopment, there is need for more of high-quality lawmaking which seeks to position the country along the path of a developed and industrialized country. The bill progression chart of the 8th House shows clearly that this is their focus as they passed over 200 bills, the highest in legislative history. And of the 25 bills assented into law by the executive, 22 of these originated from the 8th House, hoping that some of these bills will strengthen the capacity of the executive to pull the country out of recession.
This is the first time in the history of Nigeria's National Assembly when the National Assembly, or the House of Representatives in particular, has succeeded within a very short period of time, because 2 years, as far as I'm concerned, 2 years is quite a short period in a term of 4 years. This is the first time when the House of Representatives has succeeded in considering very successfully about 200 bills which have been undertaken at various levels of considerations.
The total number of bills introduced so far are 1,064, out of which executive bills are 50, Senate bills transmitted to the House 21, and private members' bill 993. A total of 126 bills have been passed by the House, and the others are at various stages in the legislative mill. 27 bills have received presidential assent, and a lot more are in the pipeline. Each of the achievements highlighted above is unsurpassed by any previous assembly. The sheer volume of these bills attests to the vibrancy of the House in its attempt to legislate in key areas of our national life at a very trying time in our nation's history.
With an all-encompassing budget reform, the men and women of this 8th House have certainly raised the bar of Nigeria's budgeting process, making the process more transparent and accountable. Budget is now passed at plenary with full details. 2/3 of committee members signed the budget report before it can be presented for consideration.
We put in certain measures in-house that made the budget to be open and transparent. Every chairman that constitutes a committee of the appropriation committee was asked to get at least 2/3 of the members to sign his final document before appropriation committee will accept that.
Recently also, there were a lot of cry over the accounting system of the House of Representatives. And today, we can beat our chests and tell the world that yes, we have put our accounts before the public. So I can clearly say that transparency has taken a major root in the House of Representatives, also the Senate, because we work, hand in hand.
In 2016, we had a very good budget, not minding the controversy that surrounded that budget. But that was a fantastic budget. But don't forget the fact that for that period of time, because Nigeria depends majorly on the proceeds from oil, and that was for a greater part of 2016, almost 70% of the entirety of the 12 months of the 2016, the price of oil was horribly low. That budget was predicated on $38 per barrel. Though there were instances when price of oil went as far to 50, yet the activities of militancy and the rest of them affected the daily production. And instead of making it up in terms of the hike in price, we had some slight reduction in the volume of the daily production of oil. So generally, the implementation of the 2016 budget was affected by not being able to cash back all the contracts awarded that will have stimulated the economy. In 2017, the budget follows the same pattern, and we hope that if the market of oil maintains the same level we have now, oil is being sold for between 53 and 55 now. And the benchmark proposed in the budget or approved is $44.5. That's a huge gap. If we are able to maintain that level of between 53 and 55 for a minimum of 8 to 9 months, that means we're going to have that kind of liquidity that will be used in cash backing most of the programs of government. I think the major problem of Nigerian budget is not in the letter itself, it's in the fact that each year we always have that shortage of cash. And when you don't have money to back up your program, it will be as if you are not doing anything. So I only hope that the market will become stable, and the price will become stable too, and possibly even get higher, so that we can have money to implement the 2017 budget.
The inclusive participation of the public was redefined as the House, for the first time ever, organized a public hearing on the 2017 Appropriation Bill, accommodating views and inputs from stakeholders from all spectrum of the society.
We have also carried out significant budget reforms. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, a public hearing was conducted in the National Assembly to get the input of Nigerians in the budgetary process. Further reforms introduced include the details of the Appropriation Act being available to all members at the passage in plenary, the requirement that members of each committee should sign the report of their committee before being sent to the Committee on Appropriations. All these novel measures are unprecedented in the history of our Parliament. These proactive measures ensured that the House debate and consideration of the 2017 Appropriation Bill presented by the President was evidence-based and geared towards galvanizing the economy for greater growth.
The budget there was a public hearing in this 2017 budget where the whole world, stakeholders were invited. That's transparency and accountability.
Give or take, I would say that we have embedded so much transparency in our system. I am convinced that there might be room for improvement, but we will keep improving so long as there are criticisms, mostly where these criticisms are very constructive.
This year's budget, haven't learned from what happened last year. We put some steps into the preparation and the debate and what have you that goes into preparing the budget. First and foremost, for the first time in the history of this Parliament, there was a public hearing on the budget where stakeholders across this country were invited and people were freely asked to make their input.
The bar on transparency has certainly been raised, with the NAS budget finally open to the public, with full details of how the budget of the National Assembly is spent, who gets what and how. This is indeed something history will remember the 8th House for.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, I want to quote him, he has said time without numbers. He has also kept his path to this commitment that this year, 2016, we will avail virtually every aspect of our financial spending. We will avail members of the public of every part of our spending, so that you will come to know how much a member earns as a salary. You will also come to know that the bulk of the money that you hear on the pages of papers, the bulk of the money that you hear on the street that comes to the National Assembly is not merely money that is being shared by the 360 members of the House of Representatives. Neither is it a money that is shared among the 109 members of the Senate. No. We have other supplementary institutions, organizations that without which we cannot function. Very few Nigerians know that we have what we call the National Assembly Commission. Very few Nigerians also know that we have institutions like NABRO. Very few Nigerians also know that in the National Assembly we have what we call NILS. Very few people in Nigeria know that even our aides that help us to run our constituency businesses and those of our aides that help us to run our offices are also paid from this bulk of money that the Nigerian press are talking about. So the money that comes to the National Assembly by way of budget is the same money that we share among these agencies or arms of our institution as a legislature. It is this same money that we share to the management of the National Assembly. We have our own independent bureaucracy, which is the management of the National Assembly, with the clerk being the head.
In this year's budget, we have made it, instead of making it a one-line budget, we have opened up and we have put the thing before Nigerians. So, talking about transparency, I think by now we feel Nigerians should be happy that the House has opened up its budget for everybody to see. That has been the promise made by the leadership of the National Assembly, right from the Senate President to Right Honorable Speaker Yakubu Dogara.
There were calls by Nigerians that, look, even the National Assembly itself, that our budget has been secreted in some kind of secrecy. In this 2017 budget, we took time to give the breakdown of what we earn. What are those things that the budget of the National Assembly, and in fact the House of Representatives in particular.
The budget of the National Assembly, perhaps for the first time, has now been published by this 8th Assembly. That's accountability and transparency.
To attest to the responsiveness and sensitivity of the 8th Assembly, the House, in response to the pulse of the people, intervenes regularly on national issues. On the 11th of May 2016, the federal government removed subsidy on petrol and announced the maximum price of 145 naira per litre from 87 naira per litre, leading to a proposed strike by the NLC. The 8th House intervened in the matter, calling for an emergency sitting on a Monday, bringing to a halt the proposed strike.
The National Assembly has always proven to be very sensitive to the aspirations and desires of Nigerians at various times. In most cases, when there is an issue that has to do maybe with the labor force, or there is an issue that has to do with the economy, where we feel our people are at the receiving end, it is on the floor of the House of Representatives or on the floor of the Senate that we always bring out these issues to the attention of the government, so that the best thing or the right thing can be done in a way and manner that Nigerians can be accommodated to really witness or really testify as to the justifiable operations of government, because you just cannot justify governance when the citizens are complaining.
In line with also the public, because of the clear oversight functions as stipulated under the provision of Section 88 and 89, it has also created some level of transparency, because where there are challenges, it is the House that speaks, fight for the public's interests, and also the common man who probably might not have the opportunity of getting fair justice out there. That is why we have our public committee that we call the Committee on the Public Petition.
For a leadership to be inspiring and stable, it must demonstrate the goodwill and capacity to carry every member along, demonstrating openness and transparency, anchored on the integrity and character of a good leader, which the leadership of the House in the 8th Assembly has demonstrated, hence the secret of resounding success as exhibited in the midterm report card of the House.
Permit me to commend and deeply appreciate you all as we look forward to even greater cohesion in the years ahead.
According to an old German proverb by William Dean Howells, an acre of performance is worth a whole world of promise.